Okay, there will never be an excuse to bullying, and it's already been bad enough that these victims of bullying have already been admitted to hospitals, but not at the fact that these laws that are committed to bullying is actually just actively trying to ignore bullying as a whole. Thank you for the opportunity given today. I will be Andrea Rhizqy as part of the representation of the first senior high school in Tuban, standing proudly as part of the proposition side of the house. Firstly, few key framings or few key backgrounds for our side of the house. Recently in status quo today, we have been bombarded with the cases of bullying, and then we feel like it has gotten to a point where students are entering hospitals every week with bullying as the main case. For example, in the Binus Suropang school, where there have already been cases of bullying, and with regards to these bullies' parents actually trying to promote bullying by posting it on social media. We feel like these are bad in status quo and that it should be carried on, and thus we are so proud to propose on this side of the house. Few mechanizations on our side of the house. Firstly, let's give context to our motion. What is bullying? We feel like bullying is the fact that you do violence to other people, and by both verbally, physically, both online or offline, and through sexual harassment as well. We feel like, what can you expect out of a bullying case? Our side of the house is not going to give more attention to the fact that you can just simply blame someone for bullying and thus it becomes a bullying case. That's not what our side of the house is trying to make. Our side of the house is actually trying to highlight the fact that these bullying cases are actually being involved with guardians and involved with the law, and thus it's going to be far more greater of violence, of tier of violence, rather than simply just blaming someone of accusing them of bullying. Secondly, we feel like at the end of the day, all we ever wanted was to prevent and portray how we should tackle bullying for the future in status quo. Noticing all the records that's already been shown in status quo today, we feel like these offenses are no longer about being a child, but rather cloaking violence in regards of bullying just because they can, and that because there's an age gap between them and they're using it or utilizing it to hurt other people. And thus our side of the house is not going to promote that, and it's going to stop that. We feel like the opposition side of the house can't go to this debate and that they say that there needs to be some sort of restorative justice at the end of the day. No, we say that because the subjects we are talking about are teenagers and they are starting to actually grow and develop both mentally and physically, we can't expect them to grow out of trauma. We can't expect them to grow out of traumatical fear of violence that has been recorded through bullying cases that have been admitted them to the hospitals, and that we should compensate them by money. No, our side of the house is not going to prove that and going to tolerate that for any further in status quo today. Few arguments for our side of the house. The main thing, why in the end this will be more important in the future status quo and that will more likely to happen. 3 layers to this argument. First layer, we feel like the action of what we will be taking is to prevent bullying as a whole in schools and to create an overall safe environment for both parties. 2 points on this argument. We see that a bullying happens, thus we report it, and it becomes a case. Thus we could conclude that they already have the consequences beforehand that they've already understood, and they're already taken out to do bullying, and thus the consequences is for them to take on their own. Secondly, we feel that this will creating a good stigma at the end of the day. Why? Because bullying will be actually red-carded and they will be highlighted, and thus bullying is not going to be a case that's going to be skyrocketing each day by day in status quo today, in which our side of the house will actually be proud to present that. Secondly, second layer, why at the end of the day this will be beneficial for both ends of the parties. We feel like for the bullies, it will create time for them to reflect on themselves and how to fix themselves, both for physically and mentally, and how they should comprehend how to not bully someone and to actually know the consequences and to actually know what will be the consequences, and there will be actions towards it, and not like the laws that are in status quo today. For example, the laws in section 170 KUHP, in which they stated that any person will be threatened with imprisonment for a maximum of 5 years and 6 months, that's already been ignored fully in the status quo today. Now, what will happen to the victims? We feel like the victims will actually have a more safer environment for their side of the house. Now, what are the best case and worst case scenario? We feel like the worst case scenario, there will be some sort of drama in accordance to the cases themselves, but we feel like there's still time to have a solution. But actively, we at least still try to actively comprehend how violence of these bullyings can actually be. And for the best case scenario, we feel like our side of the house is trying to comprehend the fact that bullying still exists and that the bullying is still a problem in our status quo today for carrying out in the future status quo, and thus this needs to be something that we need to highlight for. But what would be the solution for status quo today? We feel like there needs to be a solution, because if you stick to status quo, we feel like there will be more victims, there will be more types of bullying, and there will be more types of ways that can destroy these teenagers, and thus we are so proud to propose for this side of the house. Thank you.